Okay, so now that I've got some time set aside, we're gonna get back to working on the Great Lakes Dragon right here. So the form came in. It's been kind of sitting here and I've been waiting to get to it. So the first step I need to do to turn the squirrel into a dragon is to, for all intents and purposes, deform the body in order to make it look more like a dragon, less like a rodent. So what I have to do is start cutting sections out that match our rough layout up here with the pool noodles. So we're going to be not only making incisions in here, but we also have to take notes as to what the dimensions are of the cut. And then this piece of insulating foam core is going to be the spacer that's going to take up and add bulk into where I need space and keep it stable. So that's what we're doing right now. cut up our squirrel mount into 4 different sections. We have the lower hip section and the back legs, effectively the section where the rib cage is. Oops. Where the rib cage is. And then we have in between that effectively would go into the front shoulder section, which is this part right here. Then the front shoulder section goes into the beginning of the neck. There's tapering section. That is sitting in a vise right here. Okay, and then of course we have the head sections. We have our 4 major sections that came with the squirrel mount. Alright, so then in the last episode, last section, we took the purple insulating form core and cut sections in to add length to make it look less like a squirrel and more like our body form for our dragon. So this adds on an additional almost 3.5 inches on the inside, probably about 4 on the outside to this form. And then we also need to carry in this really long neck. It's hard for me to get all of this in the shot, so I apologize. So then that would go right into the shoulder section on the squirrel, except that we need to create a second set of shoulder joints for the wings, and typically with Western dragons they go either in sync with the front quarters, so the front legs, and then this would be literally on top of it, or right behind it. So I'm going to go with the right behind it aspect of it. And all I did was just really cut out kind of a heart-shaped shape, and then put in a little spacer in so it's not quite sitting on top of this, because I do want to still have a lot of length in there. So first off, the problem with this is a rough cut, and unlike all these spacers in here, it's not really been filed down or shaped to this. And the other thing is, I'm kind of wondering if once I get this kind of going like this, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I'm almost wondering if this is too much space. And then you can clearly tell that there's a little bit of awkwardness here. So we're going to kind of continue to file down these spacers and tweak them. And I want a little bit more curve, so he kind of looks like this. A little bit more curve, because we got to have him kind of in a U shape toward the viewer, so his whole body kind of concaves toward the viewer. So we've got this. We're going to file this down just a little bit more so that his lines kind of come toward his hindquarters and forequarters come toward the viewer, while his core torso area stay on the back half. And then we have this, which is the extensions on the neck. Now this is really going to break his whole very squirrely look, because squirrels have a very short neck. They're very stout little creatures. So what we need to do is really get a good, probably 8 inches on his neck. Now here's the only problem with it. When I did the expansion on the Lesser Desert Dragon with the same kind of hard form core, I was really only extending it out for effectively this area of the muzzle here. Okay, that was really the only major expansion that I did on it, an adjustment to his anatomy. This one has huge amounts of adjustments on the anatomy. I really don't want this looking anything like a squirrel when I'm done. And the biggest one is going to be the neck, which is going to have probably 6 inches of additional length to it, and still carrying this whole head core. So what we're going to do is we're going to do these sections almost like huge vertebrae, and continue to stack them up and stack them up and stack them up. Now it's got a double twist in it, so it not only is adding length and an arch to the neck where it comes up and then comes down, but this dragon always kind of looks out a little bit at the viewer, so you get that kind of 3/4 look at the head. So I don't know if you picked that up. It's kind of how I was playing with it, with this little pool noodle demo here is how I wanted to position it, which way kind of works really good. And so his face comes straight out and then it kind of twists and comes down. So when you're looking at it dead on from the front, you actually take a look at the top of his head, not the side of his head. So we're going to have a little bit of gluing right now. Let's see, just go in here just a little bit. Whoop, there we go. So right now I have this joiner piece from the front end of the front legs. Okay, so this is literally at the end of the shoulders and going into the neck. That's what this piece is. We're going to give him a little extension here because I really want his head. This angle here is a really sharp angle, goes straight up because the squirrel is way down, so he's up and looking forward. So it gives him kind of that look. But we still need more of a general arch to his neck, so we're going to give him a little bit of space around that, so there's a little bit of angle here and then angle it out a little bit more as we go along, rather than snapping some really hard angles in his neck muscles. So I would love to say that there's an absolute science. You need, you know, a 45-degree angle or a 60-degree angle on this, but really there's not a science. I'm kind of just looking at things and eyeballing them as to what kind of angles I like, what kind of anatomy looks correct. This guy clearly still needs some filing done on him because I have some spacers put in here, so that needs to get filed down. Some of these do have some wire poked in as kind of a stabilizing mechanism, but the problem is that it's like kind of putting a nail in foam. It doesn't really want to hold it together, and it just basically kind of keeps it in a space, not together as a whole. Foam's really not meant for that. So there'll be a little bit more troubleshooting, so ideally by the end of this section of work today, we will have figured out what we are doing with his whole torso and his front end, and we'll have the major components for his neck figured out, and we can start working on his tail, and then I can set that to dry. Tomorrow I have to go to Ohio, take a friend of mine to Ohio, and hopefully I'll be able to do something more fun in Ohio, because this is going to take a couple of days to dry once we get it set with glue. And just in case anybody skipped through it, or see, because I have this habit, and I forget some of these habits are good for some materials and not good for others. I originally went in here with some hot glue, but putting a lot of hot glue in there really doesn't work because it melts the plastic. So stick with your wood glues, craft glues, hardware glues, vinyl adhesives, that kind of thing. Stay away from the hot glue gun because it will melt your foam core. Okay, so we've done a little bit of filing. I've got 3 sections ready to set. So we attached the shoulder section on the beginning of the next section onto the shoulders onto the torso. But as you can see from the side profile, I still kind of have a hump in the back, which I'm not too worried about. But the fact that the peak of the undercarriage is right here is a little inconsistent with what the body design is going to be. So we're going to have to, when this dries, file that down so that the point of the chest is more toward the front, probably underneath the wing carriage, which is right here. Because right now it looks a little awkward. We're beginning sections of the neck, and I'm just securing these 2 sections of the head. Now, in doing this, in order to kind of play with it a little bit, I did find something interesting out, and that is in my menagerie of stuff that I inherited from my mom are these floral spikes. And they have little bits of wire, probably about 2.5 inches of wire off them. It's real fine wire, and I could potentially use this for something else. I probably will, but right now it works really well to be able to take my drill a straight hole in, and then set glue into the hole, and then drive the spike right through the entire hole, and then tie it down with saran wrap, and then tighten it down with some masking tape while it sets. So right now we kind of have the beginning. This looks very weasel-like. It really, really does. We have our beginning of our first set of shoulder bumps. Shoulder bumps for the front legs are already in there, so we don't have to establish that. Get our neck going, and the first thing you're going to notice is this is a lot thinner, more streamlined than the pool noodle one. And the reason is that really this is just for establishing big lines and big masses, not how delicate we actually want the smaller actual versions. So if you're gonna get really nitpicky about that, I'm just gonna say that's intentional, and give me time on that one, because it was looking really ridiculous and I was having trouble not laughing at it when I made the pool noodle one, because I really didn't want it being that overly bulky. So and I'm debating about right now, since I don't have it set yet, of taking these feet and pulling them back a little bit so that they look like they're actually grabbing onto the branch rather than landing flat, because these legs are not going to be like this. So like I said, when I started this squirrel is not going to look anything like a squirrel when I'm done. And right now it looks like Franken squirrel. So it's coming along. Another day of setting. leave this set for a couple of days. First off, there's a couple of huge differences between our model dragon with the pool noodles. So this is our model dragon with the pool noodles, okay? Now, if you want to take a look at this, is the hip section, shoulder section, and the head section. So total this is about, I think we figured about 15 inches. But it's a smooth line that's very posable because of the wire, okay? Now, the actual form is as long, but not as smoothly constructed, okay? So the body retains that kind of smooth angle, but the neck is really pretty, tight down on that angle. So then when we put our model dragon up here, and remember we have him posed kind of like this, and he was turned to look down into his nest. This works wonderfully. Oops. But then we have the actual model. This is the actual body form, and we actually had to put this guy really quite a bit farther back. So the positioning is a little bit different. The lines are a little bit different. And I'm starting to think I'm not going to like this neck, chances are, after it sets, because I've got multiple things setting with this. There was the reinforcement I had to do here, and then this turns out it had no reinforcing bars here. So I'm probably going to let this set and then adjust it again. So the length of the neck I like right now. But then we go into another problem, and that was this original squirrel mount. The legs were like this because he was actually meant to be sitting like on a branch or a stump or something like that, and that's not going to work with this mount because he's actually going to be grabbing onto this branch at a more vertical angle rather than the horizontal flat surface. So as long as I am setting the rest of this, and I'm going to put in another piece of tape to pull this shoulder section tight here, we need to take the back feet and put them down at a more vertical angle rather than the horizontal flat angle. So what I did is I went through with an X-Acto knife, cut it out, and then I went in with the drill, and we drilled into effectively where the bone would be, and then we're going to go through with those floral pegs and give him a stick reinforcer. And then what we'll do is we'll probably do some plaster wrap on this to make sure it stays good and solid. But keep in mind, anything that I do for reinforcing on this has to be somewhat lightweight because we don't want to end up with a lot of weight on this thing, because we have yet to put wings on this guy. And we have yet to put all his scaling and all his actual finish work in. So this core stuff all has to be really, really, really light material.